You were there. You were alive, breathing, crying, laughing, learning. Every single day, something was happening to you for the first time. The first sound you ever heard. The first face you ever saw. The first time light touched your eyes and your brain tried to make sense of what it was. And you remember none of it. Not a single moment. Not the warmth, not the voices, not the faces leaning over you. An entire chapter of your life, your first 2, sometimes 3 years of existence, completely gone, erased, as if it never happened at all. This is one of the most universal human experiences there is, and one of the least examined. You have lived through something you cannot access. And the reason why is far stranger than anyone ever told you. Psychologists call it infantile amnesia. And for over a century, the explanation seemed obvious. Babies are too young to form memories. Their brains are too undeveloped. Nothing sticks. That explanation is wrong. Not partially wrong. Fundamentally, completely wrong. Because here is what researchers have actually discovered. Babies form memories all the time. Extraordinarily detailed ones. A newborn can recognize its mother's voice within hours of birth. By 3 months, an infant can remember a specific mobile hanging above its crib for weeks. By 6 months, babies demonstrate clear long-term memory. They recognize faces, they anticipate routines, they remember which actions produce which sounds. Their brains are not blank slates. They are recording everything. So why can't you remember any of it? The answer begins with a researcher named Sigmund Freud. Not his most famous work, not the unconscious or the id or the ego, but something quieter. Freud was the first to formally name infantile amnesia, back in 1905. He believed the memories were there, buried beneath layers of psychological repression, hidden because the emotions attached to them were too raw, too primitive for the conscious mind to tolerate. He was wrong about the mechanism, but right about one thing. The memories were not simply absent. Something was happening to them. The real answer started emerging in the 1980s and 1990s as neuroscientists began mapping the developing brain with tools Freud never had. And what they found changed everything. Your brain is not built all at once. It assembles itself in stages, region by region, system by system, over years. And one of the last regions to come fully online is the hippocampus, the structure most critical to converting your experiences into long-term, declarative memories. The kind of memories you can consciously recall, the kind you can describe in words, locate in time, and replay at will. At birth, your hippocampus is there, but it is primitive, incomplete, and it is growing at a staggering rate. Here is what researcher Paul Franklin at the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto discovered, and it upended what everyone thought they knew. Franklin and his team found that the hippocampus in infancy is undergoing a process called neurogenesis, the rapid generation of new neurons at a rate that will never happen again in your lifetime. Millions of new brain cells forming, integrating, rewiring the entire structure from the inside. And that is the problem. When new neurons flood into the hippocampus at that speed, they disrupt the existing neural networks. The connections that held earlier memories in place get overwritten, rerouted, dissolved. It is not that the memories were never formed. It is that the very process of your brain growing erases them. Your hippocampus, in becoming capable of long-term memory, destroys the memories it made before it was ready. You were not too young to remember. You were too busy growing. Franklin demonstrated this with a striking experiment. He found that when he artificially slowed neurogenesis in young mice, interrupting the flood of new neurons, the mice retained their early memories far longer than normal. And when he accelerated neurogenesis in adult mice, the opposite happened. Adult mice began to forget recent memories at a rate that mirrored infant amnesia. The neurogenesis itself was the mechanism. The growth was the erasure. But that is only part of the story. Because there is another layer to infantile amnesia that goes even deeper than neuroscience. It goes into language itself. Think about how you remember things as an adult. When something happens to you, a conversation, a trip, an argument, a moment of joy, your brain encodes it not just as a raw sensory experience, but as a narrative, a story with a beginning and an end, located in time, tagged with context. You remember the event, but you also remember where you were, approximately when it happened, what came before and after. Your memories have structure. They have language threaded through them. Babies have no language. They have sensation. They have emotion. They have a body responding to a world it does not yet have words for. But the cognitive scaffolding that language provides, the ability to organize experience into retrievable, structured narrative, does not exist yet. And without that scaffolding, experiences cannot be stored in the form that adult memory retrieval requires. Psychologist Catherine Nelson at the City University of New York spent decades studying the relationship between language acquisition and autobiographical memory. Her research found a consistent pattern. Children's earliest retrievable memories almost always occur right around the time that they develop the ability to talk about past events, typically between ages 2.5 and 3.5. The memories do not precede language. Language enables the memories to exist in a retrievable form. You could not remember being a baby partly because you did not yet have the words to build a memory you could later find. There is something extraordinary hidden inside this, because it means your earliest self. The version of you that existed before language, before narrative, before the story of who you are began, is fundamentally inaccessible. Not because those years were unimportant. Researchers now believe they are among the most important of your entire life. Every attachment pattern, every emotional baseline, every foundational assumption about whether the world is safe or threatening was being laid down in exactly those years you cannot remember. The psychologist Daniel Siegel at UCLA has written extensively about how early attachment experiences shape the nervous system at a level that precedes conscious memory. The way your caregiver held you, whether your cries were answered or ignored, whether the face above you in your earliest weeks communicated safety or uncertainty. All of this was being absorbed by a brain that was recording everything and retaining none of it in a form you can consciously access. Your body remembers what your mind cannot, not in words or images or retrievable scenes, in patterns, in reflexes, in the particular way your nervous system responds to closeness, to rejection, to silence, to being left alone in a room, in whether you feel at a level below articulation that the world is basically reliable or basically threatening. These responses were shaped in the years you cannot access. They run in the background of everything you feel and do, invisible, preverbal, permanent. You are, in a very real sense, partly governed by a self you will never meet. There is one more piece to this that researchers did not fully understand until recently. Because the story is not just about what you forgot. It is about when the forgetting stops. Around age 3 for most children, something shifts. The rate of hippocampal neurogenesis slows dramatically. The flood of new neurons tapers off. The existing neural networks stabilize, and the first retrievable autobiographical memories begin to form and hold. Not perfectly, not with the clarity of adult memory. They are fragmentary, emotionally vivid but thin on context. But they persist. Researchers Chi Wang at Cornell University has studied earliest memories across multiple cultures and found fascinating differences. Children in cultures with rich oral storytelling traditions and strong emphasis on personal narrative, where parents frequently ask children to recall and elaborate on past events, develop earlier and more detailed first memories than children in cultures where such storytelling is less common. The memories were not just biological, they were partly social. The people around you, telling you the story of your own life, helped you form memories that would hold. You remember your early childhood partly because someone told you what to remember. And so here is where you are now, carrying the weight of a past you cannot see, shaped by years of experience encoded in your nervous system, but not in your narrative. Unable to access the version of yourself who cried and laughed and looked up at faces and heard voices and felt the world for the very first time. That version of you was there. It was fully alive. It experienced everything. You just had to grow a brain capable of remembering it. And in growing that brain, you lost what it recorded. You were there. You were alive, breathing, crying, laughing, learning. Every single day, something was happening to you for the first time. The person who lived through all of it is still inside you. You just cannot remember who they were.